have to read now in 187?
2 rules alone.
Right.
We have to
We have
read.
to read it.
Yeah. So,
It has to be read by us.
Archanadi, you can read that para.
Rangada, my paragraph, my book is a little different. Somebody else read it because I already saw the beginning is itself different.
Okay, then.
I have the SABCL.
Okay.
Sarika, Pallavi, somebody, one of you, please.
Pallavi,
Mine
today.
also is SMBCL. 2 rules there are, that one, no?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm reading it. I'm reading it, Rangada. We can find the difference also. I'll note it.
Okay, go ahead.
Two rules there are that will diminish the difficulty and obviate the danger. One must reject all that comes from the ego, from vital desire, from the mere mind and its presumptuous reasoning incompetence, all that ministers to these agents of the ignorance. One must learn to hear and follow the voice of the inmost soul, the direction of the Guru, the command of the Master, the working of the Divine Mother. Whoever clings to the desires and weaknesses of the flesh, the cravings and passions of the vital in its turbulent ignorance, the dictates of his personal mind, unsilenced and unillumined by a greater knowledge, cannot find the true inner law and is heaping obstacles in the way of the divine fulfillment. Whoever is able to detect and renounce those obscuring agencies and to discern and follow the true guide within and without will discover the spiritual law and reach the goal of the yoga. There are 3 lines, I'm reading it. A radical and total change of consciousness is not only the whole meaning, but in an increasing force and by progressive stages, the whole method of the integral yoga.
That brings us to the end of the chapter, and then we have standards of conduct. So, okay. So, 2 rules alone there are. Alone. You don't have alone in SABCL. Yeah. So, 2 rules there are that will diminish the difficulty and obviate the danger. Avoid. Obviate to avoid the danger. Danger of what? Danger of going wrong. Danger of falling. Danger of actually being possessed by all sorts of forces. There are a lot of dangers in yoga. That's why Srila says everything in yoga is dangerous except the psychic being, psychic coming forward. The emergence of the psychic is the safest. So, will diminish the difficulty and obviate. So, what are those 2 rules? Let us see. First rule, one must reject all that comes from the ego. And that's not very easy. So, anyway, we have to try our best. One must reject all that comes from the ego, from vital desire. Okay? Now, normally, human beings, they indulge very much in the vital desires. Okay? If I have a desire for something, I try and satisfy it. And it's perfectly okay for normal life, those who are leading a normal life without doing yoga. That's fine. Because that's what they live for. But if you're doing yoga, you have to try and reduce your vital desires. First of all, discourage them. Finally, throw them away. Then, what do you else? Ego is there in the vital, but also in the mind. From the mere mind, simply use the word mere mind. That means the superficial mind. The normal mind of man, not the inner mind, which is there in the intraconscient. Okay? So, there is also higher mind, 11 mind. So, they are saying mere mind. Mere mind is superficial, surface mind. And it's presumptuous, reasoning incompetence. Now, look at that. Presumptuous. It already, before coming to any to a decision after thinking, it already presumes that it knows. Okay? Presumptuous. You make presumptions already. You start with a decision that this must be the truth. This is the nature of the mind itself. Reasoning incompetence. Even the reasoning, when it is reasoning, it is incompetent. Very interesting what is saying. Okay? You think you are being reasonable, but actually there are a lot of loopholes in the reasoning. So, incompetence. All that ministers, all that serves to these agents of the ignorance. So all these are agents of the ignorance. What are they? Ego, vital desire, and the mere mind with its reasoning incompetence. All these are agents of the ignorance. They prolong ignorance. One must learn to hear and follow the voice of the inmost soul. So this is second rule. First rule, get rid of the ego from vital and mind. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, second rule, one must learn to hear and follow the voice of the inmost soul. And if you can't contact the soul, the direction of the Guru. Later on, he will tell you within and without. So within is your psychic, okay? You must learn to listen to your soul. But if you can't do that, direction of the Guru, a physical Guru who is there in the world. So that's a without, okay? So within is your soul and without is the Guru. And the command of the master. The command of the master. Master, when we use the word master, he means absolutely the highest level, okay? The Ishvara or the Purushottama. That's what he means by the master. And or you may also select the working of the Divine Mother, because the Mother also is there. And all yogis don't follow Mother. They also want only the highest. So 4 things he has told you. Okay, how you can do this. Either you follow your soul, if it is awake, very good. If it is not, follow the directions of the Guru. And if you are capable, get the command of the Master from the highest level and or the Divine Mother. So in our yoga, in integral yoga, Swayambhu insists on the Divine Mother. Go through like the Tantrics. They also go through the Divine Shakti, the Mother, the feminine aspect of the Divine. 4 methods he has given. Whoever clings to the desires and weaknesses of the flesh, the cravings and passions of the vital in its turbulent ignorance. Turbulent. The vital is constantly one that does not allow peace in you. Every time there is a desire, it actually captures you and forces you to satisfy itself. Turbulent ignorance. The dictates of his personal mind. Not the word dictate. It actually sets down the law for you, your mind, and says, this has to be done. Unsilenced and unilluminated. Unsilenced, all of us, our minds are unsilenced, and unilluminated also. But sometimes, even if you have silenced your mind, it may not be illuminated fully. Okay? So there are 2. That's why he's using both the words. It's possible to silence the mind and go up and get a little bit of illumination, but not the illumination of the higher planes of consciousness. You may be stuck at the higher mind level only. By greater knowledge, unilluminated by greater knowledge, cannot find the true inner law and is heaping obstacles in the way of the divine fulfillment. So if you don't do this, if you cling to your desires and weaknesses of the flesh and the cravings and passions of the vital, then you are putting obstacles in your own way of yoga. That's what he said. Whoever is able to detect and renounce those obscuring agencies, again he's using the word agencies, ego, vital, mind, all these are agents of the ignorance, obscuring agencies, and to discern and follow the true guide within and without. So the true guide within, he has told you, your own soul, and without, either the Divine Mother or the Guru. Okay? They will discover the spiritual law and reach the goal of the yoga. Okay? So, then the last 3 lines of the chapter. A radical and total change of consciousness is not only the whole meaning, but in an increasing force and by progressive stages, the whole method of the integral yoga. So note the words radical, number 1. Absolutely the roots. And in human beings, the root is usually the body, because that's the lowest part of you. Total change of consciousness is not only the whole meaning, even the body must change, but in an increasing force and progressive stages. Nothing happens immediately. It comes slowly. That's why one is stressing about the gradation. Everywhere there's a gradation, right from the lowest to the highest. Okay? So the whole method of the interior. The others are not interested in progressive stages. They go straight away. They go to the mind, higher mind, with intense concentration, and their goal is achieved, but not in integral yoga. Slowly, slowly, you have to go right to the top. That's what it's saying. Okay? So that completes the chapter, the ascent of the sacrifice. Now, he deals very interestingly. This is a very interesting chapter, standards of conduct and spiritual freedom. So, there are, as we have already said, there are many, many grades. No? There is the physical, there is the vital, there is the mind, and then even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, there are grades. Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, and over mind, and then finally the third level, super mind. And there's a fourth level which nobody has examined yet. And even if you examine, you can't come back to give a report. That's the unmanifested. Okay, so this chapter, standards of conduct, what is applicable at one level is not applicable at another level. Okay? The simplest answer to understand this is the animals who jump upon other animals and eat them up. Sort of animal cannibalism, if you want. Okay. Now that is not acceptable at the human level. So laws have changed. That which is perfectly justifiable at the animal level is not justifiable at the mental level, at the human level. It's not. Now, it is so fundamental, this idea, that every plane of consciousness has got its own laws, its own truths. That's the true truth and perfect perfection. Remember the gradation that he has talked about. Okay, so that's why he has to say true truth and perfect perfection. At every level there is perfection at every level, but you can keep going higher and higher and higher. And I'll tell you something really striking. Mother said that when she went into the supramental level, the boat, experience of the boat, supramental boat, she found that even the spiritual planes of consciousness are different from the supramental plane. So we would have thought that the spiritual planes are the ultimate. But she said even those are overpassed and you go only to the supramental level. So this is a very important chapter and we have to understand it thoroughly well. So to begin, I just tell you what those 4 standards, he discusses here 4 standards. Okay? Standard 1, the first level, okay? The ego. It's perfectly valid. You remember he said the ego is the helper, and then finally at the second level, the ego becomes the bar. So how is it a helper? Because it helps you to develop yourself, you concentrate on your own being, and you see what is to be done, and you develop it. So ego is perfectly acceptable in the beginning. That's what he said. So that is the first standard. Everything based on the ego. But human beings, the animal acts egoistically, that's fine. But the real ego comes in man, in the mind. Srivastava says the ego is there everywhere. Ego is there also in the vital. But in fact, he has said, we saw just now, egoism in the vital. Just now, that last but one para, okay, comes from the ego, from vital desire. But the real ego is in the mind of man. Okay. So the second level, what happens is that if everybody starts acting egoistically, we are all going to clash with each other. No? That's very obvious. So this is what Srivastava is. What should they say? That if ego is the only law, then there will be constant clash and disharmony. So what is the solution? So society steps in and says, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. Okay. So if you, my favorite example, I want to play loud music at 12 o'clock at night. Ego, that's what I want to do. So naturally, the neighbors will be affected. So society steps in and says, lays down laws. Okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. So it is society that insists, the collectivity that lays down laws for the individuals. That's the second standard. Okay. Pay your income tax. Okay. Then don't hurt anybody. Okay. Don't steal. Then you can't. Then even such simple. There's nothing moral about the these social laws. Obey the traffic rules. Okay, when the light is red, you can't. These are all social rules which are imposed on you. Because if you don't follow the rules, there is going to be accidents in traffic. So this is the second one. Society steps in and makes laws. And that is what the parliament is doing all the time. Parliament is making laws for every country, and each country has separate laws. There is nothing fixed about them. Depending on the needs and the conditions of the country, the laws are made. They go on changing from place to place. This is the second standard. The third standard is a moral law. Okay. Note interestingly that in the social laws, the second law, there is nothing spiritual nor even moral. Obeying a traffic law is not moral, it's just an imposition on you. Okay. You have to pay your income tax. If you don't, then that's the others will suffer. And you also will suffer if you are not paying your income tax. So, the third law is the individual sees within himself, he has an idea that he should tell the truth always, he should not hurt others. So he imposes his own ideas on the collectivity. And the collectivity also thinks in the same way. So then moral law comes in. Morality. So this is the third law. But these are all standards and laws that are there. Finally, you come to the spiritual life where no laws are there. Spiritual life is moksha, freedom. So freedom is the opposite of laws. Laws restrict your movements and your behavior. But in spiritual life, you are absolutely free. Not the body mind life, but the soul. Okay? So that is the third law, spiritual freedom. So all the lower laws don't apply to the spiritual law. So these are the four standards which we will discuss here. Okay? Now we can start reading. We have 10 to 15 minutes, so we can start reading. So, Archana, we read. So today, Pallavi, you have the text?
Yes, sir, Rangada. Yes, I
Okay.
have.
Okay, then go ahead. Read. Standards of conduct and spiritual freedom.
The knowledge on which the doer of works in yoga has to found all his action and development has for the keystone as it of its structure a more and more concrete perception of unity, the living sense of an all-pervading oneness. He moves in the increasing consciousness of all existence as an indivisible whole. All work too is part of this divine indivisible whole. His personal action and its results can no longer be or seem a separate movement, mainly or entirely determined by the egoistic free will of an individual, himself separate in the mass. Our works are part of an indivisible cosmic action. They are put, or more accurately, put themselves into their place in the whole out of which they arise, and their outcome is determined by forces that overpass us. That world action in its vast totality and in every petty detail is the indivisible movement of the one who manifests himself progressively in the cosmos. Man too becomes progressively conscious of the truth of himself and the truth of things in proportion as he awakens to this one within him and outside him, and to the occult, miraculous, and significant process of its forces in the motion of nature. This action, this movement is not confined even in ourselves and those around us to the little fragmentary portion of the cosmic activities of which we in our superficial consciousness are aware. It is supported by an immense underlying environment existence, subliminal to our minds or subconscious. And it is attracted by an immense transcending existence which is superconscious to our nature. Our action arises as we ourselves have emerged out of a universality of which we are not aware. We give it a shape of our personal temperament, personal mind, and will of thought or force of impulse or desire. But the true truth of things, the true law of action exceeds these personal and human formations. Every standpoint, every man-made rule of action which ignores the indivisible totality of the cosmic movement, whatever its utility in external practice, is to the eye of spiritual truth an imperfect view and a law of ignorance.
Okay, so very interesting. The relation from the previous chapter to this chapter. One may wonder this jump, but you will see that there is a very logical gradation which comes from the previous chapter to this chapter. Okay. First of all, that's what he is establishing in the first paragraph. He is telling you, he is continuing the idea of the sacrifice. Okay. If you remember the sacrifice, how he has defined the sacrifice. He has told you, first of all, that the one becomes a many. Okay? And the many are the individuals, and now he is dealing only with the, not all the many, but only at the human level. Because we are doing human standards of sacrifice, standards of conduct. Standards of conduct as applicable to man. Okay? So he is telling you that they are all connected. When the one becomes the many, they are not unconnected. They are always connected. So naturally you have to take into account the others and you have to act in harmony with them. That is the whole problem of the, the human behavior. How to do that. And the sacrifice, if you remember, he has told you that the ego does not allow this sacrifice to be done in the right way. It insists on separation, whereas the sacrifice insists on harmony with everybody else. You have to work in harmony with everybody else. There is also another place where he says very interestingly, I'm throwing out all these ideas, you have to coalesce them. Okay. So he says that normally man acts against the universe. Okay. I want to satisfy my desire, but the universe or the world may put obstacles in my path, but I am going to get it anyway. So I am working against the universe. So he says that man usually works against the universe, but he has to work not against the universe, but with the universe, in cooperation with the universe. That is the whole idea of sacrifice. Okay. The one and the many, the individual and the many have to work in tandem and in harmony. That's the whole, that's why the standard of conduct come into play. Okay? So keep this in mind. The sacrifice is the concept has to be understood very perfectly well. That's why now he is giving you the problems of the sacrifice from the lowest to the highest. Now, he is going to repeat what he said in the earlier two chapters, ascent of sacrifice number 1, ascent of sacrifice number 2. So, then what we are going to read now, you will see a shade of that. Okay, earlier. The knowledge on which the doer of works in yoga has to found all his action, to base all his action and development, has for the keystone of its structure a more and more concrete perception of unity. There you are, okay, unity, the living sense of an all-pervading oneness. This is the idea which he began with for the sacrifice. We are all connected, we have all to work together. We can't work against each other. He moves in the increasing consciousness of all existence as an indivisible whole. Okay? And how do we get that? By doing everything as a sacrifice. Okay? Referring back to the divine and offering all your work and everything to the divine. That's a sacrifice. All work, too, is part of this divine indivisible whole. Now, when he says all work, it begins right from the highest level. The divine is working to produce the universe, and at all the levels, even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, those who live in the higher planes of consciousness permanently, they also are working. And finally, at our level also, we are working. Work is nothing but movement. And when we use the word work, it means movement with a purpose. Okay? That is what we mean by work. But when the word karma is used, it means all types of works, including any movement. At the lowest level in nature, there is only movement, but that also is karma. Okay? All work too is a part of this indivisible whole. His personal action and his results can no longer be or seem a separate movement, mainly or entirely determined by the egoistic free will of an individual, himself separate in the mass. So, if he thinks that he is separate and he goes on doing all his personal action based on ego and desire, then you are not doing your sacrifice. Okay? So, it is not working like that. Our works are part of an indivisible cosmic action. You may think that you are acting with your own will, but it is not true. Your will is nothing but a small, very, very tiny part of the nature's will. And the nature's will is part of the divine will. So it can, first there is the divine will, and the divine will manifests in the nature's will. And nature's will is entering into each thing and gives the illusion of an individual will. But the individual will is not independent of everything else. It is only a mechanism of nature whose will is being carried out in the physical world. Just as the nature, universal nature, is making the tree grow, it is working. It is working to make the tree grow. It is working to make the sun shine. So all that is the work that is being done. Okay, and nature is doing all that work, and the tree does not think that it is growing because it doesn't have an ego. But we, because we have an ego, nature is doing the same with us. We are growing. When we are born, we are a 7-pound baby. But now we are maybe 50, 60, 70 pounds or even more kilos perhaps. So we have grown. But we are not growing by our own will. Okay? So that applies to all our actions also. We feel that I am doing, but actually you are not doing anything at all. It is nature which is making you do. You are just dancing to nature's will. And that you realize when you separate yourself from your body, mind, life and go to the spiritual plane of consciousness. Okay? Then you realize that you are not the doer. That's one of the big experiences in yogic life. You are not the doer. You is the soul. The soul is only a witness. It is watching. And finally, it also sanctions afterwards your actions. Okay, so this is the, and you see that the body, mind, life is continuing. Even when you go to the spiritual plane of consciousness with the Brahmic consciousness, you see that the body, mind, life is continuing to work in the old route only, old grooves. It is going on doing what it was doing earlier. So now Sri Venkateswara very clearly is explaining Our works, whatever we are doing, mental work, vital work, physical work, are part of the indivisible cosmic action. They are put, or rather more accurately, put themselves in their place in the whole out of which they arise, and their outcome is determined by forces that overpass us. Here, to understand this principle, you can use the image of the ocean and the sea, and the ocean and the waves. The ocean is universal nature. Each wave is an individual. It can be an insect, it can be an animal, it can be a human being. So the wave thinking that I am moving towards the shore, I am moving, that's the ego. But actually, it is being conditioned entirely, it is being produced and it is being impelled by universal nature, which is the ocean. The ocean determines the wave. The wave can never determine the ocean. And yet we constantly, at our level, we constantly think that I will do what I want and force the outside world to give me satisfaction of what I want to do. Okay? But it never works like that. Okay? It's the other way around. It's a universe that conditions you and your actions. Very, very clear. Our works are part of an indivisible cosmic action. They are put, or more accurately, put themselves in their place in the whole, out of which they arise. The wave is arising out of the sea. And their outcome is determined by forces that overpass us. That world action, in its vast totality, and in every petty detail, is the indivisible movement of the one who manifests himself progressively in the cosmos. So the one is at the highest level, the transcendent, and he creates the cosmos and enters also into it. So the transcendent is level, highest level, the cosmos is the second level, okay, and the cosmos produces all the every petty detail. Human beings, animals, okay, even the stones, that is the individual level. The one who manifests progressively. Man too becomes progressively conscious of the truth of himself and the truth of things in proportion as he awakens to this one within him. What is this one within him? It could be the psychic being or it could be the self. Okay? And within him and outside him, when he tends to see the divine in the cosmos, okay, outside him, then you realize, okay, that then you see those experience in jail. When he is in jail, he sees Sri Krishna everywhere. He sees Sri Krishna in the tree. He sees Sri Krishna in the bars of his cell. Okay, so he sees Sri Krishna everywhere. So that's it. Within you, your own psychic being or yourself, and outside you see the divine presence everywhere. And to the occult, miraculous, and significant process of its forces in the motion of nature. This action, this movement is not, it is already 8:40. Okay. So, and we are only in the middle. I think we'll have to stop here today. Okay. I laid a good stress on this because two reasons. First of all, he is basing his own, all these four standards on the fact that we are one with the universe. We are not separate. That's the first thing. Second thing is that it is connected with ascent. The two chapters ascent, so it's natural transition to this. Otherwise, you may feel it's a jump. Okay. Just like in the Gita, sometimes you may feel that there is no connection between one verse and another verse. But I can assure you that there is a great gradation from each verse. It's connected with the earlier one and even the chapters. So we'll have to stop here today. And when we do it next time, we'll begin from the middle of the paragraph. This action, this movement. Okay, it's already 8:42. We have crossed 8:40. All of you have got work also, and I have also got another class.
Your student must be waiting also. Thank you, Rakesh.
Okay. Au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.
Bonne journée. Bonne journée, Nandadam.